The scent of earth after a light rainfall mingled with the aroma of roasted corn from a roadside vendor as the taxi rolled into Amek village. Emeka, once a stern and respected NEPA staff in Lagos, leaned his head slightly against the window, taking in the landscape that had barely changed since he left as a young man in his 20s. By his side sat Azuka, his wife of nearly 35 years. She held a small woven bag on her lap, the kind that village women carried to the market. Her face was lined with time and quiet wisdom, beautiful in a way only experience could shape. Their compound, a modest bungalow painted cream and trimmed with brown, stood at the edge of the village. The red clay path leading up to it had been swept clean, and the twin mango trees that flanked the front of the house rustled with a warm breeze. A welcome party of curious villagers and relatives was already gathered by the time the taxi stopped. Emeka, a few old men called out with excitement, slapping his back as he stepped out. "You've returned at last." "Azuka, our teacher," the women chimed in with smiles. "You must rest now. Lagos must have been hard." The couple smiled and exchanged greetings with grace, but their hearts were weary. Retirement for them was not just a transition, it was a retreat. After 3 decades of city life, bureaucracy, and the distant ache of unfulfilled dreams, they had decided to come back to Amek, where the air was fresh and time moved slower. Inside the house, everything was just as Azuka remembered it. Her late mother's clay pots still sat on the shelf by the window. Emeka's late father's tools were stacked neatly in the corner. They had paid a distant cousin to maintain the home over the years, and it showed. They stood in the living room in silence for a moment, the weight of their decision washed over them like a slow tide. "Well," Emeka said finally, dusting his hands, "we are back home." Azuka nodded, blinking back unexpected tears. "Yes, we are." The days passed gently at first. Mornings began with the sound of cock crows and the aroma of akamu and moi moi steaming over firewood. Azuka found comfort in the old rhythms, sweeping the compound, chatting with women at the stream, attending church every Sunday in her pressed wrapper and matching blouse. Emeka spent time fixing things around the house, playing drafts under the mango tree with old friends, and attending elders' meetings. But village eyes were sharp and tongue sharper. At first it was subtle, the lingering stares when Azuka passed by, the whispered conversations that suddenly stopped when she approached. "She never bore him children," one woman said one morning as they fetched water. "All those years in Lagos, and not even a single one." What a pity," another chimed in. "They should have done something about it before it was too late." Azuka heard it all. She didn't need to be told directly. The village had its way of reminding you of your shortcomings. At night, she would lie beside Emeka and listen to the quiet hum of insects outside. Sometimes, when the weight of it became too much, she'd whisper, "Do you think we made the right choice, coming back here?" Emeka, ever the stoic one, would sigh and say, "Azuka, we have each other. That's enough." But was it? 3 months into their return, everything changed the day a young girl came knocking at their gate. She introduced herself as Oluchi, the daughter of Azuka's late cousin. She had lost both parents in a road accident and had been staying with distant relatives in Onitsha. Life had become unbearable there, and someone told her to seek out Auntie Azuka, the teacher who lives near the mango tree, in Ameke. Azuka, moved by compassion and family ties, took her in without a second thought. Oluchi was strikingly beautiful, light-skinned with a delicate oval face, bright eyes and a softness that made her instantly likable. She was just 21 years old, but carried the kind of innocence that made even the most hardened villagers smile at her presence. She was polite, eager to help, and always called Azuka Auntie, with such genuine affection that it melted the older woman's heart. At first, Oluchi slept in the spare room, helped in the kitchen, and went with Azuka to the market. She listened attentively as Azuka taught her how to pound yam, fry akara, and prepare bitterleaf soup. "I never had anyone teach me these things," she said one evening, her voice tinged with sadness. "Mama died when I was 16. Thank you, Auntie. You're like the mother I never had." Azuka reached across the kitchen table and squeezed her hand. "You're home now, my dear. And you'll learn everything you need to know. They became inseparable. One breezy afternoon, as they peeled cassava under the mango tree, Oluchi leaned in closer and whispered, "Auntie, I want to tell you something, but please don't be angry." Azuka chuckled. "I'm not your mother, but I'll try not to be." Oluchi smiled shyly. I like men too much. I don't know why. It's like they make me feel noticed, loved, but I've never found one who truly stays." Azuka looked at her surprised. The girl was bold, naively so, but her words stirred something in her. That night the words echoed in her mind. She likes men, but she wants someone who stays. Azuka sat on the edge of her bed, staring at Emeka, who was already drifting off to sleep. For years she had pushed away the guilt of not bearing children. She had told herself that their love was enough. But now in this quiet village, surrounded by people who measured a woman's worth by her womb, she felt it like a wound that refused to close. The thought that had haunted her for years now came rushing back. What if he had married someone else, someone younger, someone who could give him what I couldn't? 2 weeks later, after a particularly harsh market woman had sneered at her for being useless in old age, Azuka broke. That night she waited until Emeka had finished eating, then cleared his plate and sat beside him on the veranda. "I want to say something," she began, her voice trembling. Emeka looked up, mildly curious. "What is it?" She paused. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. "I want you to marry another wife." The silence that followed was heavy, like a sudden drop in atmospheric pressure. Emeka blinked. "Azuka, are you feeling okay?" "I'm serious," she whispered. "You deserve to have children, someone to carry your name. We're back in the village now. Everyone is talking. I can't take it anymore." Emeka sat up straighter. "Azuka, don't say that. I married you for love, not for children." "I know," she replied, tears slipping down her cheeks, "and I love you too. That's why I'm saying it. Please, take Oluchi." Emeka recoiled. "Oluchi, that child, she calls you auntie." "She is not a child," Azuka insisted. "She is a woman, and she likes you." "I would never," he began, but she touched his hand. "Just think about it," she said. "She is good. She's an orphan. She has no one. You could change her life, and maybe, just maybe, she could give you the child I couldn't." For days, Emeka avoided the topic. He couldn't look Oluchi in the eye, but he saw the way she giggled when she saw him, the way she lingered a little too long to greet him, the way her beauty was impossible to ignore. He was a man, after all, not made of stone. Eventually, against his better judgment, and driven by the pressure of legacy, gossip, and unspoken desires, he gave in. Life in the village had found a slow but steady rhythm for Azuka and Emeka, though it was a rhythm wrapped in quiet discomfort. Since the evening Azuka suggested that her husband take Oluchi as a second wife, the air in the household felt heavier, almost as if the walls themselves were whispering the unspoken tension between them. Emeka had not said another word about it, yet his silence spoke volumes. He spent more time outside, walking down the dusty village paths alone, or sitting at the square with the elders, chewing kola nut and nodding vaguely during conversations. Azuka, meanwhile, pretended life was normal. She cooked, she swept, she bathed early in the morning, and ironed her husband's clothes. But deep down she could feel the shift, not just in the atmosphere, but in her own spirit. She had offered up something she never thought she would, her husband, and now, waiting for his decision, felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure whether the next step would bring relief or ruin. Oluchi, oblivious to the emotional hurricane swirling around her, continued to move through their home like a gentle breeze. She was cheerful, polite, and helpful, almost too helpful. Every morning she fetched water from the stream with a spring in her step, tied her wrapper tightly around her slim waist, and hummed gospel tunes while helping Azuka in the kitchen. But there was something else, something not quite right. Azuka noticed it first in the way Oluchi began dressing differently. Her loose gowns gave way to fitted wrappers and tighter blouses. Her laughter became louder, bolder. She no longer knocked before entering the parlor where Emeka sat, and her greetings to him grew longer, more teasing. "Good morning, Uncle Emeka," she would say with a smile that lingered. "You look so young today. Are you sure you're not still working in Lagos?" Emeka would chuckle, trying to act indifferent, but Azuka could see the unease in his body language. Or was it interest? She couldn't tell anymore. Everything was becoming confusing. One evening, Azuka sat with Oluchi under the mango tree after supper, their feet bare and dusty from the day's work. "Oluchi," she began softly, "you remember that day you told me you liked men too much?" Oluchi blinked, then gave a shy giggle. "Ah, Auntie, I didn't mean anything bad, oh. I was just talking." "I know," Azuka said, studying her, "but you're still very young. You have time to choose the right man, someone who will stay, someone who will love you." Oluchi tilted her head. "I know, Auntie. That's why I'm happy here. You and Uncle Emeka, you're kind to me. You treat me like family." Azuka looked away, her heart aching. Would you ever marry an older man, if it meant a better life? Oluchi didn't answer immediately. Instead, she picked at a mango leaf on the ground. "I don't know," she said finally. "Maybe if I liked him, if he treated me well." "Why?" Azuka shook her head. "Just wondering." A week later, Emeka came home late. Azuka had kept his food warm in the pot, as always, but when he walked in, he looked unsettled. He sat quietly staring at the floor while Azuka brought out his dinner. "Azuka," he said quietly as she placed the tray before him, "I've been thinking." She sat across from him, holding her breath. "If we do this," he continued, "it has to be done properly. Traditions must be followed. No one must say I snuck around." Azuka swallowed. Her throat felt dry. "You've decided then?" Emeka didn't answer directly. "She's young. I'm an old man. It won't be easy." "She'll be fine," Azuka said, forcing a small smile. "She's strong." Emeka looked up. "And you? Will you be fine?" Azuka looked away, her voice barely a whisper. "I already gave you away. What more is there to lose?" Preparations began slowly. First, Emeka visited Oluchi's remaining relatives in Onitsha. They were distant cousins, barely involved in her life, but still necessary for the traditional rites. With the guidance of the village elders, a modest introduction ceremony was arranged. Azuka took care of everything, coordinating the food, inviting the neighbors, and making sure Oluchi had a new wrapper and jewelry. On the day of the introduction, Oluchi wore a gold lace blouse over a wine-red wrapper. Her hair was plaited in thick cornrows decorated with beads. She looked radiant, glowing with anticipation and maybe a little fear. Azuka stood beside her, adjusting her necklace. "You look beautiful," Azuka said softly. "Thank you, Auntie," Oluchi whispered, eyes wide. "Are you sure you're okay with this?" Azuka smiled, though her lips trembled. "I am. Just remember everything I've taught you." The ceremony was modest but respectable. Kola nuts were presented, wine was poured, and elders gave their blessings. Some villagers murmured among themselves, surprised that Emeka was taking a second wife so late in life. Others nodded approvingly, believing that the decision was long overdue. By sunset, Oluchi had become Oluchi Emeka, the second wife. Azuka watched them as they entered the house together. Emeka held Oluchi's hand gently, like a man unsure of his steps. Oluchi, on the other hand, seemed more confident, like someone who had just stepped into a life she had dreamed about. That night, Azuka lay alone in her room. The house felt unfamiliar, like a stranger's home. Her heart ached in ways she didn't know were possible, yet she told herself this was what love looked like: sacrifice, selflessness, surrender. In the following weeks, things changed quickly. Oluchi was no longer the orphan girl in need of guidance. She was now the young madam. Villagers came to greet her, bringing gifts and congratulatory smiles. Azuka, meanwhile, faded into the background. She cooked as usual, but fewer people came to see her. Even Emeka, who had once sat beside her each evening, now spent most of his time in Oluchi's room. Still, Azuka remained dignified. She smiled when needed, served meals without complaint, and avoided gossip. But inside she was breaking. Then came the news. One humid morning, as Azuka fetched water at the stream, a neighbor named Emma Nkechi came rushing toward her with wide eyes. "Azuka, you're fetching water yourself?" she asked, surprised. "Yes, good morning, Emma Nkechi. Aluchi is still sleeping." The woman leaned in with a grin. "She should be resting now." "My dear, congratulations, oh." Azuka blinked. "Congratulations. She didn't tell you?" The woman laughed. "Ah, Aluchi is pregnant. I just heard from her cousin who visited her this morning. Evo, God is wonderful." Azuka's hand slipped, the water pot tipped and splashed across the ground. She stood frozen, her mouth dry. "Pregnant?" "Yes now. After just a few months." "You see? You did the right thing, Azuka. Your husband will finally have a child." The woman walked off, humming joyfully, but Azuka couldn't move. Her legs trembled as she clutched the empty pot. The world around her began to blur. Later that evening, Emeka confirmed it. He walked in with a smile, an unfamiliar smile, the kind Azuka hadn't seen on his face in years. "She's pregnant," he said softly, avoiding her gaze. Azuka nodded slowly. "I know. The village already knows." Emeka sighed, as if unsure how to comfort her. This changes things, Azuka." She met his eyes. "Yes, it does." And for the first time in over 30 years, they sat at the same table and ate in complete silence. As the months passed, Aluchi's behavior shifted, subtle at first, then deliberate. She no longer helped with chores. She slept late, demanding more food, more attention, more space. She criticized Azuka's cooking, claiming it made her nauseous. "She's old," Aluchi once told Emeka, when she thought Azuka couldn't hear. "Maybe it's time she stopped entering the kitchen. I can't eat her food anymore." Azuka heard. She heard everything. She said nothing. Emeka began eating only what Aluchi cooked, though the girl barely knew how to boil yam without supervision. Azuka watched as her husband transformed into someone she barely recognized. His eyes no longer held warmth when he looked at her. His voice, once gentle, became sharp. Aluchi had not just become another wife, she had become the only wife. And Azuka, the woman who had given everything, now stood on the outside looking in. But there was one thing Aluchi had not yet learned. A home built on manipulation can never truly stand. The cracks were beginning to show. And soon the truth would be impossible to ignore. Azuka stood at the edge of the compound one quiet evening, her wrapper gently flapping in the soft village breeze. The mango trees swayed behind her, whispering songs only the broken-hearted could understand. The sun dipped into the horizon, casting a warm orange hue across the sky, a beauty that seemed to mock her internal sorrow. Her eyes fixed on the gate where Aluchi now often stood, phone in hand, laughing with someone Azuka could not see. Emeka had bought her that phone. Azuka didn't know how he had done it. They were supposed to be living modestly, retired from their years of service. But somehow Aluchi was dressed in lace every Sunday, her phone never silent, her feet never tired of dancing. Inside the house that used to be hers, Azuka felt like a stranger. The change had been gradual, like a silent storm creeping in at night. First, Aluchi had insisted on rearranging the sitting room. "These curtains are too old," she said one morning, arms folded as she looked around critically. "Uncle Emeka, can't we get new ones?" Azuka had stood behind them, holding the tray of breakfast she had made. Her ears heard "we," but her heart translated it as "me." Later that week, new curtains arrived, bright and flashy, completely opposite Azuka's quiet, earthy tastes. Emeka didn't consult her. He didn't even mention it. Then came the change in how she was addressed. "Azuka, can you please boil some water for me?" Aluchi would say loudly, even when visitors were around. Not auntie anymore, just Azuka, like a housemaid. The villagers noticed. Some whispered behind her back. Others, like Mama Ifeoma, were more direct. "You better watch that girl," she warned. "This one you brought into your home. She doesn't respect you at all." And Emeka? He no longer sees clearly. Azuka would only smile tightly, nod and walk away. But inside her heart was bruised, torn between the weight of regret and the hope that maybe, just maybe, things could still be salvaged. One rainy afternoon, the cracks that had been forming finally began to split open. Azuka was in the kitchen, peeling cocoyam, when she heard Oluchi's voice rising in the living room. "No, I said I'm tired of eating this kind of food every day. Does she think I'm a bush girl like her? Always pepper soup, always bitter leaf. I want something new." Emeka responded in a tired voice. "She's doing her best. You know she's the one that taught you how to cook when you first got here." "Please don't defend her," Oluchi snapped. "I don't even want her in this house again. I feel choked. This is my house now." Azuka froze, the knife slipping slightly and grazing her finger. Blood mixed with the water on the chopping board, but she didn't flinch. She just stood there, shaking. Her ears burned with humiliation, her chest tight with pain. Her house? The house she had cleaned, cooked in, prayed in, cried in for over 30 years? That night, Emeka didn't eat her food. When she offered him his usual bowl of yam porridge, he waved it away. "Oluchi already made something. I'm fine." Azuka sat in the kitchen alone, the pot still warm, the silence deafening. Later that week, the village church held a small women's fellowship. Azuka hadn't attended in months, but that Sunday morning she wrapped her scarf, put on her faded blue dress, and walked the dusty road with slow, heavy steps. As she entered, the other women turned to look. Their eyes were full of a strange mix of pity and admiration. She was still respected, barely, but they all knew what had happened. In a village, secrets were like smoke. They could never stay hidden for long. After the service, one of the elders' wives pulled her aside. "Azuka," she said gently, "you need to talk to your husband. That girl, Oluchi, she's bringing shame to your doorstep." Azuka forced a smile. "She's just young. She'll learn." But her soul was tired, tired of pretending, tired of defending a girl who now spat in the very bowl she had once eaten from with gratitude. Weeks passed. Oluchi's belly grew, so did her arrogance. She no longer helped with anything. Her phone rang at odd hours. She stepped out of the house late at night, whispering into the darkness. Azuka had begun to suspect, but still held onto the thread of trust, the kind of trust that breaks you slowly. Then, one morning, it happened. Azuka entered the kitchen early to prepare breakfast, only to find Oluchi's red handbag flung carelessly across the table. Her phone had been left unlocked beside it. Normally she would never pry, but something nudged her spirit. A message flashed on the screen. "Baby, I miss you. I don't care if I'm married. Come and see me tonight. Emeka will be asleep by 10. Azuka stood still, her breathing slowed, her world tilted. She picked up the phone, heart pounding, scrolling through the string of messages. Photos, voice notes, videos, all with a young man named Shinyidu, a boy from the next village, tall, handsome, barely 25. She dropped the phone as if it had burned her. For a long moment she stared into the space where everything inside her cracked, where her sacrifice turned to ashes. When Emeka came home that evening, Azuka was waiting. She sat in the parlor, her face calm, her hands folded. The phone rested on the stool before her. Emeka walked in with his usual distracted air, hanging his cap on the hook. "Welcome," she said softly. He paused, sensing something unusual. "Thank you." "Sit," she said. "We need to talk." He sat reluctantly. Azuka pushed the phone toward him. "Open the messages. Read them." He frowned. "Azuka, what is this about?" "Read. The truth is in there." He picked up the phone, brows furrowing. The seconds ticked by. First disbelief, then confusion, then anger. His hand trembled as he dropped the phone. This can't be." Azuka stood. Her eyes glistened with restrained tears. "It is. She's been cheating. In our house. After everything." Emeka stared at her, mouth dry. For the first time in months, he truly saw her. Not just the woman he had shared his life with, but the woman he had abandoned. Her strength, her grace, her pain. "I told you," she whispered. "She wasn't ready." but I loved you too much to say no. I thought it would make you happy." He looked down, shame washing over him like cold rain. "Azuka." She turned and walked to her room without another word.